The debate around physical versus digital media has been one that has been going on for a few console generations. When it comes to which is better, there is no real definitive answer. Each has their own pros and cons. For digital media, you get the luxury of not having to worry about whether the game is in stock. You don't have to wait hours in line to get the game on release date, and you never have to worry about the game getting scratched up so bad that it looks like Freddy Krueger's less attractive twin brother. But the cost of those pros is that you don't have true ownership over what you just bought. When it comes to physical media, you are physically in ownership of it and can do what you want with the game. If you didn't like the game, you could sell it. If you wanted to lend it to a friend, you could, which is stuff you can't do if you bought the game digitally. If you haven't figured it out by now, I have a certain bias when it comes to this debate. I believe that physical media will always trump digital. But I wasn't always like this. In fact, I used to buy games almost exclusively digitally. One of the reasons I did this is because I saved on taxes. I lived in a province where if you bought a digital game, you were not required to pay taxes on it. So it was a good way to save a couple of bucks. And I liked the idea of never having to worry about my game getting damaged. Because what's worse than spending $80 on a video game only for the game to get all scratched to pieces and become nothing more than a coaster? If you can't remember, the Xbox 360 was notorious for doing this. Because of where the disk drive was located in the console, if you moved the 360 with the game inside of it, it resulted in a perfect scratch and made the game unplayable. And as a teenager, this happened to me a lot more than it really should have. Ever since I switched my gears fully into PC gaming about a year ago, all the games I have bought have been digital because you can no longer buy physical games for the PC. So I'm not one of those people who will sit here and say that digital games have no pros over physically owning them. However, I also know that digital games have many cons. The biggest one is that you don't actually own the game that you just bought. This video was inspired by the recent news of PlayStation removing certain shows from their store due to licensing issues. And as a result of this, even if you paid for the shows, you'll still be unable to access them. On December 2nd, Sony came forward and announced it would be deleting 1,318 pieces of movies and TV shows from the PlayStation Network. This was because PlayStation allegedly had a licensing issue with a network discovery, which I have no doubt is true. The kicker out of this entire thing is that even if you bought the shows, they'll still be deleted from your library, a product that you have already paid for. This would be the equivalent of buying a game at GameStop only to have a GameStop employee break into your house when you're not home and take the game back. It is straight up theft. You can't even make a single argument where this action would be okay because it's not. It's not like paying for Netflix where you know you'll only have access to certain titles for a limited amount of time. People bought these shows thinking they would always have access to them. This isn't the first time that Sony tried to pull something like this either. Years ago, PlayStation had announced that it was planning to close the PlayStation Store down on the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita. Right away, gamers jumped up and asked, what will happen to the content we already purchased? Sony replied with that the content could still be accessed, but you would have to go through your purchase history to re-download your games. Eventually, because of this backlash, Sony went back on their decision to close the PS3 store and only close down the ones for the handheld devices. But this moment here really got me thinking hard again about the debate surrounding physical versus digital media. At the drop of a coin, a platform like Sony, Xbox, Steam can go ahead and essentially take your game away from you, a game that you have paid for. They wouldn't do this without reason, but something might happen somewhere down the line that causes their servers to go down. And then what happens? If you don't have the game you already bought downloaded, you're crap out of luck. And it's not like this hasn't happened before. As an old man of the age of 26, I remember clearly when Anonymous attacked and hacked the PlayStation Network, and PlayStation was down for weeks. As a middle schooler who lived off of nothing but Raiders and Call of Duty, this almost killed me. And then the exact same thing happened back in 2014 when Lizard Squad took down both the Xbox and PlayStation networks just before Christmas. When it comes to digital games, it's more like we are actually renting them rather than buying them. The platform is saying you can play this game for an X amount of time until something unforeseeable happens and you no longer can't. Even before this recent debacle with Sony, companies have revoked access to content that gamers have already paid for. In fact, Ubisoft had just done so a few years ago. In 2022, Ubisoft announced that DLC and online features for some of their older games will no longer be available. At first, one would assume they meant you would no longer be able to buy the DLC, but no. What they meant was that you would no longer be able to access them even if you already owned and paid for them. Ubisoft is Ubisoft, so this tactic from them really shouldn't surprise anyone, considering that the company can be a little bit slimy. But another example is Activision Blizzard. Call of Duty is my guilty pleasure game. I don't play it a lot, but I will go through these binges where it'll be the only game I play for a week straight. I'm sure that everyone knows that Call of Duty has a battle pass, something that you can buy with real-world money to unlock cosmetics, guns, and all of that good stuff. It was first introduced in Modern Warfare and continued right on through Modern Warfare 2. And I know what you may be thinking, but if you're not familiar with Call of Duty, there were also other games that released in between Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2. The Battle Pass itself went on for 6 seasons and could be purchased for around $15. When a new season came up, you needed to buy a new Battle Pass, and there was something like over 100 different unlockables you could get with each new season. So someone who had bought all the passes and unlocked everything had quite a bit of items. However, with MW2 and the introduction of Warzone 2, Blizzard Activision wiped the slate completely clean. Unless you wanted to play the older Call of Duty games, you'd no longer have access to these skins and items. Items that some people paid around $100 for, not to mention the countless hours that they put into actually unlocking them. But let's be honest here and not kid ourselves, because frankly, I'm not a very funny guy, even though I try to be sometimes. The main reason anyone plays Call of Duty is for Warzone. The majority of the people who bought the passes were Warzone players. And this is just another example of how fast game developers can pull digital content right from underneath you. But what exactly are the repercussions that come with these actions? There has to be some, right? I mean, companies just can't take your money for a digital product and then take it away from you. Well, they actually can. And the only repercussions they face is from us gamers. They have it right in their terms of services that they are allowed to do this. For example, PlayStation Network says this in their TOS. You are solely responsible if you do not choose to download or access the content before it is removed or your license expires. Of course, this can be a little bit vague, but the next thing I am going to read here couldn't be any more clear. Except as stated in this agreement, all content provided through PSN is licensed on a non-exclusive, revocable basis to you for your personal, private, non-transferable, non-commercial, limited use on a limited number of PlayStation devices or other devices in the country in which your account is registered. The key word in all of that is revocable. So when you hit agree on PlayStation's terms of services, before you actually read it, because let's be honest here, nobody actually reads this stuff, you are saying that it is okay for PlayStation to revoke access to content that you have already paid for. We are giving PlayStation the right to take away something we have bought. And honestly, this is the big danger with buying digital. We see that the video game industry is moving towards a more digital-only format. Just look at the past couple of console generations. We've seen Xbox and PlayStation releasing a digital-only version of the Xbox One and PS4. We see the same thing with the Xbox Series S and the PS5. This isn't just a conspiracy theory conjured up by people who think that the sun is the devil and that lizard people run the world. Although, that would explain why politics are in the current state that they are in. The big companies, Xbox and PlayStation, have a reason for wanting this shift to digital only. And once again, it comes down to money. It's a lot cheaper to have people buy digital games than it is physical. When it comes to physical games, companies have to worry about shipping, distribution, and stuff like that, all of which costs extra money. So why do this when you can just sell a digital version of the game for the exact same price as a physical copy and cut out those extra costs? To those that are still skeptical, that are shaking their heads and wondering why they even clicked on this video, let me ask you this simple question. How long do you think that the PlayStation or Xbox servers for the PS3 and Xbox 360 will be open for? The answer isn't forever, because that is just unreasonable. Maybe 10, 20, even 30 years. But at some point in time, it's not going to be worth it for these companies to keep these old stores up or offer online services for them. Eventually, you will lose access to your digital games. But as humans, we always like things to be convenient. Why go to Walmart when we can order what we need off of Amazon? Why go out and hunt when we can just buy our food at the grocery store? It's just something that has become ingrained in us in the past few generations. Maybe it's because a lot of us no longer have this work or starve mentality. Our ancestors used to have to hunt for food. They had no choice. Our grandparents used to have to walk down to the river to get water. They had no choice. But in this generation, we have an overabundance of choices, and oftentimes we pick the most simple and easiest ones. And when it comes to buying video games, the easiest choice and simplest choice is to buy digital. But what do you guys think? Do you think that I'm just a crazy man rambling on? Do you agree with me? Or do you think this whole thing is being blown out of proportion and there is nothing wrong with buying digital games? Let me know down below. And if you stuck around this long, remember to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell, as you'd greatly help a fella out. Hope all you guys have an amazing and wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.